years, 1,300 years after the original manuscript. As far as the works of Homer are concerned, there is a time gap of 400 years from the original manuscript to the first copy of copies. In terms of the New Testament, now, I'm going to be generous here. That can range, in terms of the New Testament, copies of the original manuscripts, that can range from 20 to 65 years after the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ.
He was generous.
And when you're talking about a document of authenticity that of an event that happened 2,000 years ago, a time gap between 20 to 65 years from the event to the earliest copies of the original manuscript, 20 to 65 years is nothing. It's just an eye blink in comparison to other works of antiquity like the works of Homer and the works of Plato. Finally, the last thing that is looked at by historians is what they call the amount of variances between the copies. So they meticulously go through all of the copies and they look for variances. And as far as the New Testament is concerned, there's very little variance, and most of the variances come in things like spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. It could be something as simple as, in one copy, the word John is spelled John, and another copy it'll be spelled John. Or that will be marked as a variance, right? However, the good news is that
I'll talk to you later, Kevin. You're really boring.
Yeah, off you go. Away you go. What a horrible woman. Goodness me. I know I'd be living on the corner of my roof. So, as far as the New Testament is concerned, the amount of variances actually amount to about 1%. 1% variance amongst the 6,000 copies. The mistakes in the New Testament copies are only things like spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. The good news is that the core doctrines of the New Testament have remained the same amongst all of the copies.
Yep,
and
that's confirmed by Bart Ehrman.
Yeah, that is heartening. That is very encouraging.
Yeah, even the leading textual critic of the New Testament, Bart Ehrman, would say that. I've watched him say it. You can find him quoting this on many videos and many interviews. So as far as historically speaking, we Christians in the New Testament, we have a good leg to stand on, Luke. If you're going to be consistent,
believing Jesus
we actually
existed.
have a really good stand on. Pardon?
I'm cool with believing Jesus existed. It's just the supernatural stuff I'm skeptical of.
Well, yeah, that's a philosophical presupposition, which is fine.
It's empirically based. It's not just philosophical. It's based on everything I've seen in my life. It's like if you told me you could fly, I wouldn't.
Because we haven't seen it. Right, but you would admit logically, just because we haven't seen it, doesn't therefore follow it didn't happen.
Absolutely. I'm not offering a disproof, but a justification for my skepticism.
Right, which would mean, as a thinking person, you shouldn't dismiss it, right?
Not dismiss out of hand as in believe, be sure it didn't happen. Yeah, I'm not sure it didn't happen. Yeah.
Right, so you're open-minded on it. Okay, well, that's fine. As long as you are open-minded on it, because, I mean, like I told you, I gave you a philosophical reason why it's coherent and rational to take the biblical position earlier. I've given you the historical inquiry as far as any other document of contemporary at that time. The New Testament and manuscripts is very well and very strong. So as long as you're willing to admit that because you haven't seen someone rise from the dead, therefore you're skeptical, that's fine. I accept that. And if you're willing to accept that just because you've never seen it doesn't mean that it didn't therefore happen, then I respect your right to be skeptical.
Nice.
It's just I hear people say all the time that no, it's impossible that it happened because of that philosophical presupposition that you have to see it to believe it. But again, the claim is people did see it. Just because we didn't see it doesn't therefore follow it didn't. And there's evidence for us to believe that it did happen from eyewitness. Now the question is, you can say, well, they could have lied about it. They could have been trying to start their own religion for power and stuff like this. Again, this is speculatory and assumptions, which means it's not really a good argument, because if we're going to play that game, I could just respond to you every time when you say something to give an argument. Well, I just think you're lying. And because you can't convince me that you're not lying, then I'm justified about believing what you're saying. I just think that's unreasonable.
Cool. Yeah, I agree that it's coherent and that it's rational depending on your life experiences. It wouldn't be for me, but it might be for someone who is convinced they've experienced miracles and that sort of thing. I've got a question. Would you take the same position towards evolutionists? Do you think that if I've had a life of seeing lots and lots of transitional fossils, studied the science, and that I could be rational and coherent in believing it?
I personally don't have an issue with evolution.
Cool. It was just the abiogenesis talk earlier that threw me off then.
Well, again, we will agree that evolution still, foundationally, is still a theory. Now, there are working models, yes, but working models do not therefore provide that it is the case.
Do you know what the current theory of gravity is?
You can inform me.
It is general relativity by Einstein. It has reigned supreme for 100 years. Theory doesn't mean that it's not well supported. Theory is not hypothesis.
Well, right.
Yeah, we didn't need Einstein to tell us about gravity. Job had already told us about gravity.
Well, before Einstein's theory of gravity, there was Newton's theory of gravity, which is less accurate.
Yeah, but Newtonian physics still worked. It was still a good working model. It's just when Einstein came along, it was a better one.
Yeah, Newtonian works within everyday circumstances. Then when you find weird exceptions, it breaks down. And Einstein's theory is a much more broadly applicable theory, but it also has places its breakdowns, singularities in the Big Bang. So we know we need a bigger theory, and it's also just a useful fiction.
Do you hold to the Big Bang theory?
Yeah, not that it came out of nothing or anything, but that we can trace the universe back to a very hot and dense state 13.7-ish billion years ago.
So you're like all of us. You believe the universe is emergent from something else.
Yeah. I have no idea what the...
Would you think that whatever this is could potentially be an infinite number of causes?
Yeah, I am open to an infinite regress.
Well, how? Okay.
Yes, let's do it.
Well, if you're open to that, doesn't that lead to problems?
No, I think the problems are all faulty, and all the arguments against it sort of sneak in a beginning and that sort of thing.
No, that's not actually true, Luke. It's been settled science for decades that the universe had a beginning, it had a start. The universe is not eternal, it's not always existed. This has been well proven by science.
I think you're wrong about it, and that was the idea for a few decades, that we could use general relativity to trace the universe back to a singularity and a start of space and time, but for the last 3 or 4 decades we know that a quantum theory of gravity is needed to be confident on that, and really we can't predict any further back than a very dense and hot state. We can't go back to a singularity.
Oh, wow. So, given that you're so well schooled in these things, You all know about the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, correct?
Yeah, if any universe is on average expanding for all of its history, then it can't have forever been expanding.
Excuse me a minute. Let me get some
But the BGV theorem, which is settled science since 2003, claims that the universe is not eternal and had a definite starting position or definite start point.
No.
Yes, look, I'm looking at the paper right now. I don't know what
It's the expansion
I
of the
don't know
beginning.
what. Do not talk over the top of me,
Sorry.
please. So where are we? Where are we? The BGB theorem is a theorem in physical cosmology which deduces that any universe that has, on average, been expanding throughout its history cannot be infinite in the past, but must have a past space-time boundary. That's code for beginning. The theorem does not assume any specific mass content of the universe, and it does not require gravity to be described by Einstein's field equations. It is named after the authors Alan Guth and Alexander Vilenkin, who developed its mathematical formalism in 2003. The BGV theorem is also popular outside of physics, especially in religious and philosophical debates. So, like I said, this is accepted science and has been since 2003. The universe had a beginning.
No, that's not what it said. That's not what it said.
Luke, do not say to me.
Can I repeat what you said from that paper?
Do not talk over the top of me.
Sorry.
And do not say to me that this is not what the paper is saying.
No, you read it properly, but you misunderstood it, and I'd like to explain why you misunderstood it.
Look, can I get some moderation here? Otherwise, this guy's just going to keep talking over. The Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem states that the universe had a beginning and has been expanding from that beginning. The universe will not expand infinitely and will someday come to an end. The other really interesting thing, the BGV theorem pinpoints the need for the beginning of our physical universe. The BGV theorem pinpoints the need for a beginning of all physical universes, if there's such a thing as multiverses, which I don't believe for a minute. The BGV
a judge there.
Alright, I'll tell her now.
laws of logic, which are a description
Maybe somehow.
My internet not so good.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay now or not?
Or let me speak.
Can you hear me or not?
Now I can hear
Okay,
you.
fantastic.
Good. Yeah.
So
Now good.
I gave you two examples,
Okay.
right?
You need to go carry on?
So the first example is you are being punished because you did something really bad. Maybe you committed murder, right? You're being punished. And the judge starts getting angry and shouting at you, and then he punishes you to, 50 years in prison. The second example is the same thing happens, but the judge doesn't get angry. He simply tells you what you've done wrong, and he sentences you to 50 years in prison. Which of those two is the better judge?
God is none of those ones. It is something third. Can I tell you? Can I?
But I'm just asking you in this example, which is the better person. That's what I'm asking.
It is no one of those. It is not. No, for us Muslims, no one of those is better. There is something more better than that. Can I tell you about it, or you just wanted to know if that or that? If you give me the chance, I will tell you, of course. It is better one than the first one and the second example you said. Can you give me that chance at all?
So did you say the first example where the judge gets angry is better than the example where the judge doesn't get angry?
I am saying no one of them is better. Can you give me the chance to tell me the third one, which is better than all of them? Can you?
Yeah, you can. Haiti, I'm trying to bring you up there. It's not allowing you to bring me up, so you might have to rejoin.
Alright.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I sent you.
alright, alright. So now, yeah, hi. So now it is like this. God, He will never judge you immediately like this, because if you are saying, according to your next to your second example, if the judge he just immediately he told you that is wrong, and then he started punishing you, of course that will have no mercy, right? But God, He will give you the chance till the last day. I mean, like that's that day we call in Islam al-Akhirah. So He will give you the chance till that day. If you get back, then He will forgive you, and then you will be Muslim and so on. There are no problem on that. But if you not get back from the wrong that you did, I mean, to the safe place, and I mean, you let all those bad stuff and so on, and this forbidden stuff, then He will judge you in the judgment day. So what I'm telling you here, that God give us the truth. He will tell us this is a right and this is a wrong. People, you should choose one of those, wrong or right, and then you have also the choice. You have the area, and you have the area. All right, you can do it, and then you cannot do it, and then you will get the job.
My friend, I understand the basic principles. He's giving you commands. You can obey them or not. And if you don't, you can ask forgiveness, etc. I'm asking you why He gets angry. And you said, because then He can invoke justice. And I said, but hang on a moment, He can invoke justice without being angry. And you haven't responded to that. And I said further, actually I said the second thing, which was, it seems like anger is contingent on
I remember the one now.
Yes?
Alright, I get the point. So, the relation between God anger and His and how that influence in the in His judgment, right? Alright, I'll tell you that. Now, when we like God, He told us He get angry when we do something bad, and according to that, we will have azab in Allah or torture in the judgment day, right? So here, that to show us that God is there, and that is to warn us. God now, in this time, when we are doing or we are committing shirk and this bad stuff and killing